Hello, friends. I'm back after a rollicking visit to Peru to catch the tail end of harvest and do some filming for a project so epic that it defies explanation at this current point in time. Peru is always an adventure, and while I visited distilleries in the Anchor portfolio around the world, Peru just might resonate with me the most. It's a spiritual place, and that spirituality somehow finds itself into a glass of Peruvian pisco. But more on that in the future. Lots more. Many other things happened on the trip, including my birthday, which may or may not have included me falling out of a tree and befriending a feral cat, which I named Gato the Fatto. We spent a magical evening together, and he seemed to really want to be my friend. We also attended the 100th anniversary of the Morris Bar and its epic contribution to cocktail culture, the Pisco Sour. Gato did not attend. But yes, friends, it was a good trip. And I'm glad to be back here in San Francisco in the good old USA. Let's do this. Today's episode of the Educational Drinking Show is sponsored by Anchor Hophead Vodka. The folks at Anchor know a thing or two about working with hops, so making a hop vodka is a natural idea. This delicious hop spirit is made on a small copper pot still using 2 varieties of hops and is perfect to sip alongside your favorite Anchor brew or as the base spirit in your next Bloody Mary. Good stuff. My guest today is Bonnie Wilson, who works as the Director of Independent Bar Concepts for Frontburner Restaurants in Dallas, Texas. It's no secret that there has been a full-blown cocktail revolution over the last 2 decades, best evidenced by the countless new high-caliber cocktail bars that have appeared in cities around the country. But equally exciting is that thoughtfully made cocktails are expanding beyond the city and into the suburbs, which just happens to be Miss Wilson's specialty. Concepts like Whiskey Cake Kitchen and Velvet Taco bring craft cocktails made with small production spirits and seasonal ingredients to the mysterious realm of the Dallas suburbs. And to learn more about her experience doing so, I'm pleased to share with you my conversation with the esteemed Bonnie Wilson. This is actually the first time we've served beer in these mugs.
Well,
and it's so thoughtful that you're using a coaster.
That's what we do, you know. We're women. That's how we think, I guess. Coasters are kind of a thing for me anyway.
Why?
Well, everywhere we go, like if we go to a distillery or we go to a new town or whatever, we collect coasters.
When did this begin?
It began a couple months ago. My sister went to New York and she forgot to get me something. And so I think in the airport, she got me the little coasters that look like little Arabian rugs and brought them to me. And I was like, what'd you get me from New York? And she was like, oh, yeah, I got you these really cool coasters. And I was like, okay. Did you get them in the airport? She's like, yeah, I kind of did. Sorry.
They sound like great coasters, though.
They're super cute. They look like tiny little like Arabian rugs. So they have the fringe and everything. Like they're super cute. Yeah.
And how many coasters do you have now?
Well, so I've gotten those. My friend Sue just got me some from Maker's Mark. We recently got some in Colorado that are like needle pointed. So we have several different varieties of coasters at this point. So nothing's getting on my coffee table.
And you're a bartender.
I am a reformed bartender, now manager, sort of beverage person.
What does that mean?
Well, I'm a bartender through and through. I love bartending. I 100% kind of miss that daily interaction, I'll be honest with you, but have been so blessed to have been promoted. So now in my company, we have different concepts that we run, mostly within Texas. We do have one store in Oklahoma. And they're all craft bar programs. And so we decided about 2 years ago to create a position to kind of oversee those craft programs, to kind of have a spirit specialist in-house, to move it off of sort of a director of operations sort of thing and really have it be very specialty craft bar. So That's knowing portfolios, that's knowing spirit knowledge, that's beer and wine knowledge, obviously training. You're just maintaining the integrity of that technique, that craft bar program. So that's kind of what I do now. So I oversee 6 restaurants in my portfolio right now, and I oversee the creative direction, training, sales, inventory, all that kind of stuff. So.
Did you create that position, or was that created for you? Or
well, yeah, myself and my owner kind of created it together. He felt like that we had an opportunity to really set ourselves apart as a company for our craft bar programs, and he kind of one day called me in and asked me what I thought about it, and you know, would I think that there would be enough work, and what would I do, and what would be my goals, and all of that. And I said, yeah, you know, I mean. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what my future holds with this company, but this is what I would love to see in these concepts that you want to open. And he's like, awesome. You're the new this, you know, and he created some crazy name for my position, and that's what we do now. So, and I'm very blessed. It's a wonderful position. I get to do what I love every single day. I get to work with amazing teams. I get to go from concept to concept. So it's not stagnant. Everything's different. So it's really cool.
And was that an innovative leap to kind of go this direction and embrace craft at this level?
Innovative for me or innovative for them?
For them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they had already started it. My mentor, Sean Connor, started the program at our flagship store, which is Whiskey Cake, which we have locations in Dallas and Oklahoma and San Antonio. And he started that craft program, and I came in really soon after, and he kind of taught me the business. And then he left the company about 2.5 years ago to sort of do his own thing and focus on his family. And so, you know, at that time, we were in the works of opening several more concepts. And so I think it was a commitment for them. I think it was a really big leap to say, hey, listen, we really want to dedicate this so much that we're going to create a whole nother position. We're going to take it out of the operations people's hands, and we're going to say, you're the person that we're going to go to for this knowledge. And it was a big honor. It was obviously a big compliment, and a super great, you know, opportunity for a bartender for sure.
Do you treat each account as its own bar program, or do you approach it more as a portfolio and make changes across all of them at once?
No, I really do it individually. Even though we have 3 of the Whiskey Cake concept, they're so individual. Oklahoma is a 100% different market than Dallas than is San Antonio. I mean, they have different flavor profiles, and we use different farms. We have different styles that people like in those different cities. So we really try to be really individualistic about it. We also have a Latin concept and a Southern concept. So they're totally different. You know what I mean? So every single one is completely different, you know? Yeah.
How does it allow you to express your creativity as a bartender out of a traditional, hey, I'm working at one bar, this is my total focus, to having so many more levers to pull?
Well, I mean, you get to express yourself in so many different ways. I mean, with Whiskey Cake, it's very sort of garden to glass. It's very fresh. It's very herbal, fruity. With our Latin concept, it's all the agaves, you know, so it's everything agave. It's mezcal, and it's all the salts and the different, you know, flavors in that way. With our Southern concept, it's more gin focused. We get to play with rum and gin and things that we don't always do. And then we also have a Texas concept called the Ranch at Las Colinas, which is mostly Texas spirits, which has been really cool because when I started with this company 5 years ago, Texas spirits were, you know, still on in the infancy stage of quality. Let's just put it that way. And now 5 years later, I mean, you just see it's so much better. The landscape is so much better, and new spirits are coming out every day, and people have so much more commitment to quality, and they want to produce really great spirits that really showcase our state really well, and they've done that, and we're able to showcase that at the ranch, which is really cool. So.
And what are some of those kind of new, smaller producers coming out of Texas that have you excited?
I really like the innovation that Garrison Brothers has done. You know, they started out and everybody was kind of like, we don't know. But they really have made great strides, I think, in the last couple of years, and their whiskeys that they're producing right now are really, really good. And I've visited them several times, and they're really doing it the right way. It's very, you know, there's a lot of integrity there. There's a couple new distilleries. I think Treaty Oak does a great job. They've recently come out with some new products as well. They're building new distilleries. There's a new gin coming out out of Austin that I really like called Highborn. That's really, really good. We have a couple other distilleries that are still kind of coming up. I think, TX whiskey, known for being blended, but they're going to come out with a bourbon. And I think, again, we're going to see that sort of get a little bit more exciting and less mainstream, if you will, and be a little bit more craft. So, yeah, I think there's and obviously the flagship Balcones, is a great. It's always been the benchmark, I think, for all Texas spirits, starting with Chip Tate, and then now they have a new leadership. And I'm excited to see what they have coming up.
We're really excited here at Anchor about the American single malt category overall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have Westland whiskey out of Seattle, but Balcones did so much for that category and really putting Texas on the map
Absolutely.
as a whiskey producer.
Yeah, absolutely. That Texas single malt, I have to say, is one of my very favorite whiskeys. I got it for Christmas from my boss because he knows I like it so much. I think I'm really excited about American single malt. I think it's 100% like the way that the palate is going. I mean, Hudson is doing a really great one right now. There's a couple other people that are doing some really cool. I love the Westland. I just tasted the sherry finish Westland with Dennis upstairs, and oh my goodness, like it is really, really nice. Really nice.
What is it about the American single malt category? Because for me, and I think a lot of people in the industry, it's such an obvious thing, but for whatever reason, I think consumers have a little bit of a hard time wrapping their head around it as a category.
I think that Americans in general just have so much more familiarity with wheat and with corn as a grain base, and even rye as a grain base. And so to introduce this sort of concept of barley, when I teach classes, I often reference bread. Because we all know what wheat bread versus rye bread versus corn bread tastes like and smells like and feels like. And barley's a little different because we don't really make bread with barley. And they did, 100 years ago, of course. But, and so to kind of, and also barley kind of has this sort of old world, feel to it, right? So Irish and Scotch. And when you say Scotch, it's so polarizing for people. They think of the peaty, they think of the salty, briny, Islay malts and things like that. And that's not really what this is. You know what I mean? And I think what American single malt is going to do, is I think really show how beautiful barley really is and how tasty it is, you know what I mean, and how it's truly like it's where it started for a reason, because it's such pure, clean whiskey that has its own flavors, and I think that it's really cool because the other thing I think it really does is it shows, like when you look at a single malt from Seattle, like you were talking about, versus a single malt from Texas versus a single malt from New York. It really shows like the difference in the terroir and in the water and in the way that they're doing it. And I think it's really cool because it's going to show the different parts of America, you know what I mean? Which we're so lucky to live in a country that has so many different climates and seasons and terroirs and all of those sorts of things. So I think that that's going to be really neat.
So it sounds like you believe in the future of the category.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love it.
And how do you look to serve those, in your concepts? Is it more straight up on the rocks or is it more in cocktails?
I do like to do it straight up in the rocks. I do like to do it with in very simple old fashions. So you do an old fashioned, but maybe it's not just simple syrup, but maybe you take one note of that and you make a syrup that speaks to that particular category, or that particular whiskey, like maybe it's a tea syrup or maybe it's a citrusy, cordial or something, and you use that and that kind of brings out the things in the whiskey that you really want to show. And I think the same is true for not only single malts but also Japanese whiskeys, unpeated, single malts from Scotland. I think all of those are just such delicate, pretty floral whiskeys that I don't really like to put a lot of stuff with them. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to put big, heavy, sweet vermouths and things like that in there. I just like to do really simple things. One thing I was just talking to some one of your people here at Anchor about one of y'all's whiskeys, and we were talking about how sometimes doing a perfect Manhattan with a dry vermouth and the sweet vermouth kind of shows the whiskey off a little bit more because it doesn't overshadow it, and the viscosity remains a little bit nicer and cleaner and lighter. And so I like doing stuff like that where it's a little bit more dry, where the whiskey will kind of show through.
And what are you drinking these days on a Tuesday night hanging out at home?
Well,
if such a thing exists.
I recently got a new bottle of the Nika coffee grain, which is available in my state again. So I'm real excited about that. So I've been drinking a lot of that. And I drink a lot of bourbon. I'll be honest. I drink bourbon. I drink a lot of tequila lately.
Mm-hmm.
Tequila is the best for like if you just want to have a dram and you're going to wake up feeling great and there's no residual effects and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love a good tequila. A really nice light mezcal I think is always really nice. I know you guys are super excited about mezcal here in San Francisco for sure.
Very much so.
Yeah, everybody's really excited about, which I am too. I think it's really great. When you get into the sort of those nuances of the different agaves and the different villages and their different techniques, I think it's really, really cool.
And what is Dallas's place in the Texas, or even more importantly, the U.S. cocktail scene and bar scene? I mean, I've been to Austin like 3 times. I've never been to Dallas or Houston. I'm doing it wrong, I think.
Well, I don't know if you're doing it wrong. I think you're doing it the way that the country sees Texas. You know what I mean? Austin is sort of quote unquote the cool spot or whatever. Houston is, just big. It's just real big. Mm-hmm. And they have some great stuff going on down there. They really do have some very talented people, but it's a really big situation. Dallas, to me, I really, really love our city for our cocktail scene. I think that we do really balanced cocktails. Mm-hmm. I think that we take influences from all over the country. Dallas is known for kind of being a city of transplants. Everybody's kind of from somewhere else. We get overlooked a lot. I think that people kind of think that we're pretentious and they think of the big hair and, J.R. Ewing and all and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? So I think we get the short end of the stick a little bit when it comes to recognition or, integrity. And they think, oh, well, do they know what they're doing? But I have to say that I've been to a lot of cocktail cities and I've been to a lot of distilleries. I've been to a lot of, I've been in the spirits industry a while, and I really, really like what we have going on in Dallas. And the other thing that I really think is cool is that we in Dallas are such a community. I mean, we really are brothers and sisters. I mean, there are some cities in the U.S. that are very competitive. They don't support each other so much. It's very sort of cutthroat a little bit. And in Dallas, we're really not like that. I mean, it's very much a family. We know everything that's going on with everybody else. And we support each other, and there's not that cattiness, you know what I mean? And so I really, really like that. And in addition to the fact that I think we make really great cocktails. Mm-hmm. I think people have really balanced lists from new stuff to, really knowing the classics. I think that's a really, kind of sets our city apart. I think people are going to start to know it pretty soon. We'll see. Is
that something that's been the case for a while, or has it gone through a recent evolution, or what's it been like over the last 10 years?
You know what? We always we look at it as kind of almost like a kind of like a there's a nucleus, and then there's like a second layer, and then there's like a third layer, and then like a fourth layer. So it's like there's like a nucleus of people in Dallas that have been doing it a long, long time, and they kind of brought up that second layer of people, and then those people kind of got promoted into management positions, and they brought up that third layer of people. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of on that fourth or fifth layer at this point. Some of us have been doing this a long time, and we've gone from bartender to bar lead to bar manager to either owner or beverage director of something. And so you see those generations of people, and I think that's going to continue to evolve. And it's been really nice to see just the support that everybody gives each other.
And Texas is so unique because you guys have the famed 4-tier system, which adds that extra layer.
Yes.
Can you tell people about that might not be familiar with
it?
Totally.
So you have a supplier, like Anchor, for instance. You have a supplier, and then that supplier sells to a distributor. Mm-hmm. So that distributor is somebody like Southern Wine and Spirits, Glazers, Republic, National, whatever. And then that Republic, National, or Glazers or Southern sells to a wholesaler. In Texas, the biggest one is Specs. You'll also hear Goody Goody. You'll hear Twin. You'll hear Seagulls. There's several. And then me as a consumer, as a buyer for my restaurant or bar, I go through the wholesaler. So let's say you and I talk about, buying Westland whiskey, right? And you are at Anchor and I am a buyer. Well, I have to go. So I have to go through the wholesaler who buys from the distributor who buys from you. Mm-hmm. So there's 4 people involved for me to buy one bottle of whiskey. So it is challenging. And there's a lot of people involved, and more often than not, and most important, is relationship. You have to keep your relationships really, really well, and you have to be very diligent about feedback and about following up on things, and really, having everybody sort of get in line with exactly what your plan is and what you need, so that everybody's kind of on board and understands. And so it just takes couple extra steps, you know what I mean, to do that. But if you're diligent about it, it can actually be really fun because there's a lot of different avenues that you get where you get resources from not only the supplier for education, but you also can get resources from the distributor. You can get resources from the wholesaler. You also have all those people coming in to support your business, you know what I mean, to know what's going on with your business and support that. So it can be really good, but you just have to be very diligent about communication for sure.
Does it affect your ability to get, new or obscure stuff? Is it harder for the product to get into the market?
I think in some instances, maybe. But I think, again, the people that really have it together with their communication between all those different tiers don't have a challenge as much. But yeah, I mean, it's especially if it's a new product, you know what I mean? If it's a brand new product and it's a little bit craft and it's like, it's not everybody's going to want it. And maybe it's a, $200 bottle of Taiwanese whiskey that you really want.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so you got to call a couple people definitely and make sure everybody's kind of on board. But, you just kind of have to be very, email centric.
Yeah.
business forward. Yeah. Totally.
And you mentioned, you have a great community of local bartenders, and you guys are making fundamentally sound, balanced cocktails. What are you guys really known for? What makes you unique as a city? Are there any drinks in terms of the history, spirits? What's really in your cocktail DNA as a city?
Well, the margarita was created in Dallas.
I didn't know that.
We always kind of put that one up there. The frozen margarita was definitely created in Dallas.
Is there any other kinds?
Well, I mean, yes, but not to Dallasites for sure. But yeah, I think we do a really great job in tequila and in margarita sort of things. I think that we do a really great job with whiskey. I think that Texas is, in general, we drink a lot of whiskey. I think we're moving away from blended sweet Canadian whiskeys and moving more towards bourbons and American whiskeys and single malts, as we mentioned before. And I think that people are really excited about that and they're wanting those cocktails, you know what I mean? So I think we do a good job of that. And lately everybody's been doing these really crazy Ramoses. Like everybody's all up into egg white, crazy. How high can you get your Ramos Gin Fizz off the glass? So everybody's excited about that lately.
That's a thing?
Apparently it's a thing, yes.
That's awesome.
It is a thing. We're up to like an inch and a half at this point. So yeah, people are really excited about it.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot of shaking.
And it's pretty warm there year round, right?
Blink your eyes and the weather will change
in
Texas. Oh yeah, it's very finicky. But yeah, I mean, we didn't have much of a winter this year. We typically have about 3 seasons, hot, hotter, and a little bit chilly, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty mild. It's good. It's a really nice place to live. I mean, the weather is very nice. It really is.
And the culinary scene, is it follow the whole barbecue meat thing?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some barbecue, but I have to say, I mean, our culinary scene is really, really great. We were so blessed. We had several James Beard Award-winning nominees this year. We have a lot of great new restaurants opening almost every week, and we really have some really cool stuff going on culinary-wise. And it's everything. It's not just Texas and meats and barbecue. It's different stuff. I mean, David Unger is doing amazing Italian. We have other people doing some really cool, Nouveau American and small plates and tapas and this and that and Spanish and all that kind of stuff. And I think that the culinary scene just continues to evolve and continues to get really a lot better in Dallas every day.
When did you get into the industry?
I've been in the industry about 5.5 years. It was definitely a career change for me. So I'm kind of a baby, even though I've been very blessed to advance pretty quickly. I worked for Aveda. I was in hairdressing and managing hairdressers before this. Was in the music industry before that. So I've had several evolutions of my career for sure.
What drew you to this?
Inevitably it's the same thing, right? Because you manage musicians who are artists. You manage hairdressers who are artists. You're managing bartenders who are artists. You know what I mean?
You really believe that?
I absolutely believe it. Yeah, absolutely. You have to be in tune with your creative side. You have to understand how flavors go together and and think about things a little bit outside of the box to really, I mean, you have your fundamental, right? And you know your, 100 to 200 classic cocktails and what those ratios are and how that's built. And then you build on that and you switch this up and you tweak this or you change this, you know what I mean? And you really have to be creative in order to do that and own it and love it, you know what I mean? And continually reinvent all of this stuff, you know what I mean? That's basically just, 5 cocktails just redone.
How do you bring that philosophy into your work that you're doing now with the bartenders that you work with? How do you make it practical? How do you make it commercially relevant? And how do you make it effective?
Well, I think the first thing that I really focus on with all my concepts is seasonality. I really try to look at what's in season, what's hot right now, I try to stay really up on trends in terms of flavor trends, so if everybody's going towards umami or saltiness, then we figure out how to sort of incorporate that. But inevitably, I think the most important thing is to keep it simple. So one reason that, we're actually having this conversation is I was having a conversation with your president, Dennis Carr, about creativity through simplicity, meaning really taking those classic cocktail recipes, the sour, the daisy, the cobbler, and making them, still be simple and still be, marketable to the average human who doesn't necessarily know about all of the crazy amaros and bitters and things that we use in the cocktail world.
Amateur hour. Of course it was me, as you were saying.
It's okay. I mine rang earlier and I was like, I'm going to put that on silent. So we try to do that and we try to be creative and integrate some of those trends, but keep it really simple. You know what I mean? And I think that that's one thing, like when I come to these big cities, I mean, you guys have menus here that, I could not sell one cocktail to my guests off of these menus because they're just so much more advanced. It's a city and you guys are obviously going to progress faster than an interior city that's got a younger cocktail scene. And so for us, especially, a lot of my concepts are in the suburbs. I'm not in downtown Dallas. I'm not in uptown. I'm in the suburbs and we're bringing cocktails to the masses, if you will. And those ideas and even some of the food as well. That's craft and it's farm to fork. And they've never had that before because the only ever place that they've eaten is Applebee's. You know what I mean? So it's like you're having a new conversation with them. So you don't want to go too far. You don't want to go above the bubble so that they don't even understand what you're doing. But at the same time, you want to be creative and you want to be relevant and you want to think that you're on, that you're in the scene and that you're doing everything that you can do to make your city relevant and make yourself relevant and make sure that your cocktail menus are looking, that you can put them up against somebody, from San Francisco or New York or whatever. So that's really, it's a very delicate balance. I don't always achieve it. I try, I think we all do, but we work hard to do it. So, yeah.
Are there times when you do try and push your consumers out of their comfort zone? And how do you do that?
I try all the time. Yeah, I definitely try. We do it with cocktails that we know aren't going to be the number one seller. We have those ones on there that we know are going to sell a ton, and then and they have great cost and they have great appeal, and we know we're going to sell a ton of them, and so it leaves room for us to play. It leaves room for us to have 1 or 2 or 3 cocktails on there that we know are not going to be for the average consumer, but it's going to be for somebody a little bit more advanced. And then our job as operators is to train our staff. Our team members to recognize that in a guest and to be able to say, hey, you look, you're ordering this really nice bourbon or you're ordering old fashions, so you like spirit forward cocktails. So let me suggest this spirit forward cocktail. It's a little bit different. It's got some stuff in there you may not recognize, but trust me, it's going to have, it's going to taste like this. It's going to have this flavor profile. This is how it's going to be delivered. And it gets people kind of out of their comfort. And they're like, oh, and you built that trust because you've made them a really great old fashioned or you've made them a great Manhattan. And so they trust you a little bit more. You know what I mean? And so then you're able to sort of have that conversation. The challenge for us operationally is to make sure that our people are trained so they know, what they're supposed to recommend, obviously, and for them to buy into the program just as much as the guest does.
Is that a challenge, finding competent bartenders?
Always.
Yeah.
I think it's a challenge for everybody, especially in the suburbs. Like I said, I'm not in downtown Dallas, so I don't have all of the, suspended, mustached, hatted, people coming in all the time. You know what I mean? And that's and I love those people, and I think those people are amazing and they have great talent. But I think more exciting for me is to take somebody who just kind of like me, who was a Jack and Coke beer bottle bartender, and teach them craft and say, this is the final frontier. It's like, if you can master this, you can work anywhere in the world. You can come to San Francisco, you can go to New York, you can go to Chicago, you can go to these craft bars, and you know what to do. And I think and that's really my goal. Anytime we hire a bartender and anytime I'm involved in the training of that bartender, that I want them to feel confident in going to any craft cocktail bar in the country and feeling like they know what they're doing,
What has surprised you about taking this approach into the suburbs of Dallas?
The willingness of people, the thirst for that. Yeah, I mean, the people that live in the suburbs today 10 years ago were the people that were living downtown. You know what I mean? Like they all were there then. They got married, they had kids, and they moved to the suburbs. But they're still the same people. They're you and they're me. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm 36 years old and I live in the suburbs, but that doesn't mean that I'm not cool. It doesn't mean that I don't want something that's cutting edge, that's exciting, that's stimulating. I don't want to eat at a chain restaurant. You know what I mean? Maybe it's because I'm in this industry, but I know tons of people that are in the same boat that aren't even in this industry at all. They're tired. They're tired of eating the same thing, and they want something that's exciting. And just because we're in the suburbs doesn't mean that we're not relevant,
Yeah. It's so interesting because the concept makes so much sense. It's a very simple idea based on fundamental ideas. Let's take something really cool, executed at a high level, just not do it downtown. But you don't see it happen very often. Do you have a lot of kind of things to compare yourself to in terms of the model?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we do, but I think that we do it on a volume level that I don't think anybody else does, especially in Dallas. We do huge volume because we've taken that concept of craft and we don't do it in a 45-seat restaurant. We do it in a 300-seat restaurant.
Oh wow!
And so it's a lot different. So it's a different challenge. So while I want to put a cocktail out there that has 8 ingredients and requires multiple techniques and things like that, it's like I have to do that, but I have to figure out how to do that for 300 seats. You know what I mean? So it's a volume conversation in addition to a craft conversation, which I think is not a conversation that a lot of people are used to having.
Is it challenging working with, a lot of these smaller products carry a higher price point just to make it work. Is it harder to bring those products into the model that you guys are trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said before, we have those cocktails that we know are going to sell, and they have a low cost point, and we kind of, and those are our workhorses, if you will. You know what I mean? And it allows us to have 2 or 3 cocktails on there that cost wise may not make sense. You know what I mean? If all of the cocktails were like that, we wouldn't make any money. But we know that we're not going to sell 1,000 of them. And we know, so it allows us to sort of have a little bit higher margin on those. And then the other thing is that we're very smart about waste. We're very smart about, if we use a really, one high cost product in a cocktail, maybe everything else is not that high cost or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if you do, we all addressed ratios, things like that. So we make it work. But absolutely, it's definitely, if I was running a 45-seat restaurant, I would be able to bring in a lot more high dollar spirits into cocktails, but really all that is, Alan, is that you have a conversation with your guest and they get to trust you, and then you pull down some of those higher cost items and you charge them accordingly, and they're fine with it. But I can't put a $15 or $18 or $20 cocktail on a menu in Plano, Texas, and don't want to, you know what I mean? Because it's just, what is that saying to the guest? It's saying, what, you don't even know us. You don't know what we do. You don't know what you like. You don't know that you're going to like this, but we're going to charge you $20 for it. No, I want you to get some of my other ones and trust us and start to understand what we're trying to do. And then if you ask me for a recommendation, I'm going to tell you, hey, this is going to be amazing. Yeah, it's going to cost $18, but you're going to love every moment of it. And that's again, that's just, it goes back to training. It goes back to making sure that your people are bought into your concept,
And you mentioned seasonality earlier as being important to you in your work. What's the local agriculture that you pull into the bar program?
Well, at one of our concepts, Whiskey Cake, we actually keep an on-site garden.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. So we're able to sort of pull some garnishes out of there or things that we make shrubs or syrups out of, which is really cool. My chefs in all of our concepts are all super connected with our local farms and seasonality. And so they really, they'll tell me, hey, I'm bringing in, Cara oranges this month because we're going to use them seasonally on a salad. Do you want me to bring in an extra pallet? You can make a syrup or you can make a shrub or whatever. So the communication between myself, my bar managers, and my chefs is paramount to making sure that we're seasonal and that we're using everything that's fresh and good, and we kind of get their leftovers, which is just fine with me. Most of the time I use a lot less than they do, you know what I mean? So and just knowing what's in season in Texas and knowing what's great, you know what I mean? We're so great that we live in a state that has such a mild climate and we can grow a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we're able to have access to things, for a longer period of time.
What are some of those
really
signature items?
Well, basil, tarragon, obviously grapefruit. I mean, everybody knows Texas grapefruits are the best. Those Rio Stars. We have all kinds of citrus, though. We do oranges and lemons as well. Mainly it's herbs, tarragon. Like I said, basil is amazing. Other things, too, like in the winter, we'll get pomegranates and we'll get, things like that. But, just kind of knowing what's in season.
And is it difficult making an herb garden practical for the kind of concept that you're working with?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely difficult. I mean, we have to have somebody dedicated to it all the time. We have to pull things as soon as they're ready and then plant something immediately afterwards. And sometimes it's not feasible. I mean, sometimes, we want to use something out of the garden and we have a little bit of it. And then maybe we have to supplement that with one of our suppliers so that we can run a special that we want to run. You know what I mean? But we know that at least some of our own stuff is in there. You know what I mean? Even if we have to supplement with something else. Rosemary is a great example. You know what I mean? Like, we know we're growing our own rosemary, but we may not have enough for everything that we want to do. You know what I mean? So we work with our suppliers in that way to sort of supplement.
So there's a pretty big learning curve in pulling that off and bringing it to life.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on. I mean, obviously, and some of our gardens are a little bit bigger than others. Our garden in San Antonio is enormous. Our garden in Plano is 50 feet off of the highway and tiny. So we make adjustments where we need to.
And was that a hard thing to bring to life, just in terms of getting the support to do it? And I mean, that's a big commitment, a big investment.
Well, yeah, and I think more importantly, I mean, we have to find somebody to manage it. You know what I mean? And
you're not out there.
Me personally, I'm pretty brown thumbed about it all. But we have some really talented people in our business that have been with us a long time that help us manage those gardens. And then the challenge is that then when those people leave or move on or whatever, then finding somebody to take that person's place and making sure that person understands what they're supposed to do and what the work is, required, which it can be, pretty labor intensive at some points.
And then working with these multiple concepts in the suburbs of Dallas, where do you want to take it? How do you continue to evolve and take it further?
Well, we have a couple, just continuing to do new concepts. We have a couple new concepts on the books, and then to take our successful concepts like Whiskey Cake and expand them. We have a Whiskey Cake opening in Katy, Texas, in September of this year. We have a couple more that we're looking at to do in 2017. So just expanding the successful concepts that we have, but then continuing to be creative and open new concepts and continuing to push ourselves to just do the very best expression of whatever it is that we're trying to do, whether that's, tacos with our concept Velvet Taco, which is a fast casual concept that has been wildly successful. If we wanted to, but if we one day decided we wanted to do barbecue, we would do it the very best that we could do it. And we would do it in a fun, funky way, just like we've done all of our other concepts.
And this approach to cocktails sounds like it's pretty ingrained in the organization, regardless of the concept that you're trying to introduce. Yeah,
I'm very blessed to have some really great support from our ownership. They love spirits, they love cocktails, they love the culture, and they have been so gracious in placing their trust, for that in me, which is wonderful. But more importantly, I mean, they totally support all of the things that I want to do, all of the initiatives, and we brainstorm together and we say, hey, how can we make this really cool and really great and make it be able to sustain the volume that we want to have and still make money at the end of the day, of course. And so, so it's been a really great experience.
And then you got into this industry 5.5 years ago.
I did.
How'd you break into it? Where'd you start?
Well, funny enough, I started at Whiskey Cake.
Really?
Yeah, I decided to leave the salon industry. It was November the 8th. And and I just kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to stay in the beauty industry and go more corporate or what I wanted to do really. And they were opening Whiskey Cake down the street from my house. And I literally just applied as a hostess. Like I didn't want I needed a break. I was super burned out from my last job and my last career. And, so they hired me as a server, and about 3 weeks in, I met the bar manager, Sean, as I mentioned, and he was like, "Hey, you're kind of smart. Like you look like you're interested in what I have to do. Like I'd really love to teach you this business, and I need a partner." And so I said yes, and kind of put everything else I was doing kind of to the side, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna explore this. I'm gonna see about it for a little while and see if this is something that I love, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I think that all my other experience really helped me to advance as fast as I have. I mean, I have a lot of training experience. I have a lot of, just management experience in general. And so just learning the craft part of it, I was able to sort of use all of those other tools that I had in my back pocket and apply them to this world, which has been really, really good. And and so like I said, I started with Whiskey Cake as a server and moved up to bartender and moved up to bar lead and went over to the ranch at Las Colinas, and we changed that program from kind of a general regular sort of beer bottle program to expanding the brown spirits and expanding the beer list and making it more of a craft program. And we were really successful with that. And so then 2 years ago, we decided to create this position. So that's kind of, a really fast, advancement, but it's been really, really fun.
And all of your training came from within the organization in terms of bartending technique?
No, I'll be honest. Sean started that out, but I took it upon myself to do everything I could do to learn everything that I could. Mm-hmm. I started going to Tales of the Cocktail immediately. I started taking a lot of, Bar Smarts and all the online classes that you could do. I was really blessed to get to know Jason Cosmas really well, really early. And he's the owner of Employees Only. And he introduced me to Dale DeGroff, and I was able to, do some special events and meet people like Doug Frost and, just the major people in our industry really early on and really get to have the experience of their knowledge super early. And I think that was a big, big deal in terms of the way that I've been able to advance my education. Obviously, I've read every book on the planet. I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to that. And and so I think just really immersing myself in the culture of it was a big deal for me.
That's so cool. And what are some of the books that come to mind that have really influenced you?
Obviously Jerry Thomas, Dale DeGroff's Craft of the Cocktail, all the books by, all the people that we love, like Jason and Deshaun, PDT from, the people up there, and just all the kind of the cocktail books that sort of talk about different technique. My favorite book recently is Jeffrey Morgenthaler's The Bar Book. I think he does an amazing job, and he's a genius anyway, but just an amazing job in really breaking down the technique of everything. And really sort of explaining why things are the way. And honestly, that's the way that I train my people. It is all about the why. It is never about, well, I'm telling you to do this just because, or because I said so kind of thing. That's kind of an old school mentality. It's kind of the way that I was not trained in this business, but in my previous, jobs. It was kind of the way that people treated me, and I didn't really appreciate that. I think that the most important thing, especially with this new generation, is to really explain the why of it and to really understand why we make the choices that we make and why the technique is so important when it comes to creating these things. And for me, really communicating that why is super important. And that's really what I tried to get from sort of studying all that stuff.
Man, that's so cool that you had all those opportunities and you pursued them so aggressively.
Very blessed. Yeah, I was very blessed.
It's really the way to set yourself apart. Have you done much traveling for spirits to producing regions and suppliers and whatnot?
I recently went to Mexico for the first time to see the agave fields, and I went with Luna Zool and got to meet Francisco and all of that at Tierra de Agave. And that's kind of my first region in Mexico to do that. I've been to Kentucky a lot. I've been very blessed to go there many, many times and see many distilleries and see that production, which has been really, really special. To be honest, I haven't ventured across the pond yet. That's kind of the next venture, is to Ireland and Scotland, and to really see how they do stuff up there. I'm really excited about doing that. But yeah, here in America, I've really tried to do everything I know how to do to get into distilleries and breweries and see what their production it looks like. I would say I was very impressed with what you guys have going on here.
It's a good spot.
It's a really good spot. Yeah.
And then you had mentioned opening up some new concepts probably in the future. What else is next for you? What's on the horizon? What are you looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to, like I said, some of the stuff that we have coming up. We are doing a really big project in 2017 that includes a new brewery, a food hall, several new concepts, an ice house. So that's going to be really, really fun. We are going to, like I said, expand the Whiskey Cake brand, which is really cool to be able to get to train people on something that we're so passionate about. It's been 5 years since we opened, almost 6 since we opened the first one. And just to get to spread that message and recreate that in different markets is really cool. And just continue to, get better at what I do and get better at business and get better at running restaurants and making smart decisions, but keeping the integrity of it all. And I think that that's a constant learning process.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us today and telling us about your many adventures in the suburbs of Dallas. I didn't know it was a thing, but now I do.
But now you do.
That's where the action is.
It's where some of the action is, for sure. We're trying to make it relevant, for sure.
It's so easy to write it off, like you just think it's this void of
we call it, so I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones. So we're beyond the wall. We're north of the wall. The wall is like, we have this road that runs around Dallas called 635, and that's what they call it, in the bubble, or in the loop. If you're outside of the loop, you're irrelevant. You know what I mean? To a lot of people that live in Dallas.
You guys are like wildlings.
Yeah, we're totally the wildlings. Yeah.
You really put a lot into that metaphor. I like it.
We've thought about it a lot.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you,
sharing
Alan.
your story, and I look forward to hanging soon.
Thank you so much, Alan. I appreciate it.
Thank you.